Okay, sometimes you have to get averages on data that is not formatted correctly to get averages or any type of statistical function with the data. And the reason why is because sometimes the data has a mixture of numbers and letters in it. For example, this right here in cell B2 says 105M, and the M stands for million. Well, that really hurts things, and you're better off to do something like this, make the column header pay in millions, and do not include the text in the data. But you can't help it if you get data that has already been given to you that's not ready to go. Now, I'll show you that this doesn't work in a second, but first I want to show you some shortcuts on getting statistical functions here. For example, if I want to get an average or even a standard deviation or any statistical function, I could start typing it in, like std for standard deviation, and find stdev.s for sample standard deviation. And then you get the parentheses, and now to type in what I want to get the standard deviation of, I could type in the first area and then pull that down, or find out where the data ends by scrolling down, and we see that it ends in cell 101 right here. So I can click there just to mark it, and let's go back up here, and I'll say from E2 to E101, close parentheses. Now that's a bit of a pain. So I want to show you a little bit easier way of doing this. You can do equals. Let's do the same function, standard deviation for a sample. And now, instead of finding where the data starts and ends, I can just click up here at the column that I'm in, and it's going to get me the standard deviation of all my numbers in this column. So now just close parentheses and hit enter, and I get that standard deviation. So that works out fine, but it won't work out fine over here in any way we do it, because if I do equals standard deviation or average or anything, and I say, well, give me the standard deviation of this column, well, it's not going to work. And the reason is because the M, and no matter how I do it, it won't work there. So what I have to do is I got to clean this data in some way. So the way I clean this data is, first of all, if there's functions in here, you want to copy and paste special the whole column over. It's not a bad idea to do that anyway, because then if you mess up your data, you'll be messing up a column that's not in your original data. So I'm going to copy this data. Then I'm going to go to a new column. Let's just go right here, and I'm going to do a paste special. That's your paste 1, 2, 3, or you can go down to paste special. Now that I have that data, I want to get rid of the M. Well, I don't want to go through and backspace an M off all over the place, because that would be a hassle to do that 1,000 times. So instead of doing that, I'm going to go to data here, and I'm going to do text to columns. And what that's going to do is, you can do this a couple different ways. With this data, doing it fixed with won't work, because if I do fixed with and I say next, you can see that here the 105 is in the first column and the M is in the second column like we want, but the next one isn't. It's a fixed width. You can widen it, but if you widen it, since the M's are in different places, it won't work. I'll show you that it doesn't work. I'll say next, and I'll put it in a new column too. I like to do that. So right here where it says G1, I'm going to just put it in a different area like over here. So let's finish it. And the point is, it doesn't work. It didn't get all the M's out of here. So let's undo that. And the better way of doing this is to, let's do text to columns again. And we're going to do delimited. And what this does, it looks for a character, and that character is what's going to separate the things. So I'm going to say next, and I'm going to delimit it based on a other character, and the character that I'm going to base it on is a M. And now if I say M, you can see that it took the M out. Everything to the right of the M, which there's nothing, but everything to the right of the M would go over to a new column. So let's just say next, and again I like to put it in a new column, so I'm going to do over here an I somewhere and say finish, and now I have my data in. Now if I want to get the average of this column, I can do that very easily. Equals average, and then just click at the top, close parentheses and hit enter, and there's the average of that. And if we want more cells, we can go to the home screen and add more digits if it had it. So anyway, that's how you can do that with just eliminating a character like M or whatever. But let's say that you have something worse than that. Now let me pause this a second and I'll get some data that's worse than this. Okay, so what I did is I inserted additional columns here by just clicking at the top and right mouse clicking and doing insert, and that gives you more space. But right here I put these two together, and the way I did that is using this function called concatenate, equals concatenate, and I said give me this cell D2, give me a space, and here that's what this does, parenthesis, quotation, space, quotation gives me a space right here between the words, and then E2 will be this 105 right here. Now I'm going to double click here so it does that all the way down, or you can just pull it down, but double clicking when you're on a cell is nice because it does it very quickly and accurately. But here's the main point. How do I separate this off? If my data came like this to begin with, how can I get rid of these the text on the left hand side? Well, the answer is to go back to data and do again text the columns. So I'll show you what we can do here. Text the columns, and we want to delimitate it right here, delimited, and we'll say next. Well, actually we might have trouble here because of this function in here. I'll try it, but I think we're going to have trouble. What we want to delimitate it this time based on is just the space. So I will get rid of that M and just hit a space. And it doesn't look like it's going to work. I think it's going to put in the function in there instead, but let's see how it goes. So we'll say next and finish, and see, all it did was put in the function. And that's why you have to copy and paste special. So let's undo this, and we'll highlight this data, copy it, go one cell, one row over, one column over, and paste special 1, 2, 3. And now there's no functions in here compared to over here there was functions. So we're in good shape here. Let me get rid of that. So now what I'd like to do is go back to doing what I was going to do, separate this. So let's highlight this, and we'll go back to text the columns, and we want to do delimited and go next, and we already have the stuff in here we want. We want to delimitate it by other, and see, you have to put a space in here. Just hit the space bar. Now see, again, space bar, the space is what's going to separate it. So I'll say next, and I'll put it in a new column. So let's highlight that and put it right here, and I think we should be good. Let's say finish, and there you go. You have boxing here, and you have the 105 there. So that separated it out. Now if there wasn't a space in between it, then it gets into a lot more hassle, because you have to get into the length of it. You have to go so far right, and that's a bit much. So we're going to go with no harder than this, and boom, we got our data. We can do some stuff with it. So hopefully that will help you on this exercise.